2/3 of the caregivers in this country are also women. And they end up becoming caregivers right in the prime of their life when they're parenting children, trying to provide for their families, working in their careers. So I think people don't know those statistics. People don't know that Alzheimer's discriminates against women. I think people are scared of Alzheimer's, and understandably and rightfully so, and they think, oh, if it doesn't run in my family, I'm in the clear. You're not. You're not. And if it does run in your family, doesn't mean you're going to get it either. So I look at this, it's the most expensive disease in the history of our country, the most expensive disease right now. It's not funded at the level of cancer and or AIDS, which is why I've gone back to testify. This president tried to cut funding of NIH research, and I testified in front of Susan Collins, a Republican who's been very instrumental in funding of NIH funding for Alzheimer's disease, and we got that passed. So every day I wake up trying to answer that question, why women, and to try to use my voice to alert families that this is if this ends up on your doorstep, and it's going to end up on the majority of people's doorstep, it's really financially debilitating, it's emotionally debilitating, spiritually, mentally, physically, every way. I look at it really as the ultimate women's empowerment issue because it affects every part of your life. And the majority of people in this country think that their children or a loved one is going to end up caring for them, and they have no idea the cost of caring for somebody with Alzheimer's, the facilities that we have. We don't have enough caregivers in this country to meet the boomer crisis. 10,000 people turning to practice, myself almost 10 years ago. And we have a lot of research now of watching the brain when it's meditating and how it clears and how it calms itself down. Sleep being also a very important component of having enough sleep. Having a kind of regular sleep pattern allows your brain to clear out what they might call in layman's term the trash that's in your brain, to clear it. Keeping yourself active and learning, critical. The brain kind of stops, it starts to change at age 30. So that's another thing. You're never too young to start thinking and learning about your brain health, and you're never too old to stop learning. So brains of super agers, people who are in their 80s and have the brains of 20-year-olds, are people who are challenging themselves, learning card games, learning board games, learning languages, learning gardening, staying socially connected, staying socially involved. Loneliness is a huge issue, where people, end up living alone because we don't really also have a plan for that, but that's another thing. So kind of sleep, meditation, exercise, diet. If you look at people who have necessarily super agers, but people in blue zones who are in their 70s and 80s and 90s and beyond, who are still clearly thinking, who still have, in-tuned minds. They have specific Mediterranean-type diets. They're more plant-based. So I try to do a lot of conversations with people who are looking at intermittent fasting, you should check all this with your doctor. I'm not a doctor, so, but I do know a lot about this. So intermittent fasting is another thing that has worked really well for people to have clearer minds. That's when you kind of do the majority of your eating in an 8 to 12 hour period, and then you let your body and your mind rest from food. Eliminating white processed sugar. Sugar is really detrimental to the brain. I have a challenge myself with that. But these are things we know. I do a big event every year called Move for Minds with Equinox, which I'd love to have anybody join me with, which raises money for women-based research, and where doctors and researchers come to the clubs, and I interview them to give us the most up-to-date information. But the information that I just talked about 5 years ago, nobody was talking about. 3 years ago, nobody was talking about. So there is hope. I think people think Alzheimer's is hopeless. It's not. It is hopeful. It is I am hopeful that in my lifetime we will find a cure or a way to really slow its progression if everybody really takes it seriously and jumps into the fray.
I know that would be a perfect note to end on, but I just want to ask you very quickly about the documentary called Take Your Pills that you and your daughter executive produced, because I think the subject of Adderall is so important right now.
Thank you. Yes, Take Your Pills is streaming on Netflix, and it's done extremely well, which I'm really happy about. It was my daughter Christina's idea after she was in college and saw the abuse of Adderall. and how many people were taking Adderall, how many people were addicted to Adderall, how many people were having trouble getting off of Adderall, how many people felt like, oh, I only need Adderall for my exam. Oops, I need it to work. Oops, I don't see myself without it, and oops, I can't go to sleep, so I have to take something else, and so it starts on this road. So Take Your Pills, for me, is a great, I know many people need Adderall, need help. It's not to discriminate or shame those people, but the abuse of this drug and or others, or the desire to hack your brain and be able to stay working 24/7 is a concern for those of us who are parents, and it's a concern really for young people who are working at a pace that they can't keep up without this drug. So Take Your Pills looks at what is kind of very much an American phenomenon, looks at what we're losing by taking pills that allow us to stay focused 20 hours a day. And what is the downside of that? And is there any end in sight for that? Or is the work culture, the way it is today, really going to demand that everybody be on some form of a smart drug, a performance-enhancing brain drug? And what is the cost to us as a society of that?
All right, I want to thank Maria Shriver for being here today, and thank all of you. Have a wonderful time at the LA Times Book Festival, and come back next year.
Thank you very much. Thank you.